The video on findings for UBI is over 13 minutes long and has 21 findings. It would be too much to watch at once for deliberative dialogue. There are breaks and pauses for dialogue rounds. This is probably more than can be covered in one call. The wisdom of the event can guide us.
And we're going to continue Title 4, promoting the general welfare. So the general reminder, welfare means health, happiness, prosperity. And so how do we promote prosperity? We ensure that everyone has enough money to participate in the economy and keep it circulating. So we looked at the Treasury dollar bill portions of this legislation at the last hearing, how the digital cash will work. And today we're going to look at Subtitle B, the American Union Jobs Program, and how it gets distributed. So Section 441 is the findings and purpose. Just to give a brief overview, the American Union Jobs Program is a universal basic income. Everyone gets an American Union job. Everyone gets an unconditional $300 a week, and it's paid in Treasury dollar bills. This is the distribution program for the Treasury dollar bills to ensure we have a trickle-up economy where all citizens benefit.
Wait a minute. Questions. Things we need to know before we study the findings. We need informed testimony from a qualified witness. Brian. 1. Is the American Union Jobs Program the same as UBI? Question 2. What are Treasury dollar bills? And 3. What is digital cash?
I'd like to read the findings into the record. They're a little bit on the lengthy side, but they cover the reasons of why universal basic income, why we can do this, why we should do this, what are the benefits of doing this. And yeah, I'm just going to read these into the record. A, Congress finds the following. 1, America has sufficient resources to ensure that none of its citizens live in poverty. The easiest, simplest way to do this is with universal, unconditional income, basic income, UBI, a regular amount of cash distributed to all citizens. In his book, The Road to Serfdom, Hayek advocated for assuring that some minimum of food, shelter, and clothing were provided to everyone. However, individuals are best suited to decide what their specific needs are. Providing fungible cash gives people the liberty to make their own choices. 2, it is the unconditionality and universality that brings many of the intangible benefits of UBI. Finland's recent experiment found recipients experienced increased trust, which is something America could benefit from when they felt supported by those around them. Many societal benefits addressing wealth inequality have been well documented in the book, The Spirit Level, Why Greater Equality Makes Society Stronger. 3, as a form of UBI, the American Union Jobs Program will establish a safety floor that no one can fall beneath at $15,600 annually for adults, plus $5,200 a year for children. Allowing tens of millions of our countrymen to fall into poverty through the holes in our existing safety net demonstrates that we are failing in our constitutional duty to promote the general welfare, health, happiness, and prosperity. When combined with Treasury dollar bills and a public payment infrastructure, it will also bring millions into the banking system and reduce demand for predatory lending. 4,
Stop right there. Before you go any further, I want to hear testimony from the qualified witness. 1. How do you figure out there are enough resources to end poverty in America? 2. It worked in Finland, but would it work in America? 3. Is $15,600 annually for adults plus $5,200 for children based on the current poverty level?
the health of the nation will benefit by ending poverty with UBI. In her book, Hand to Mouth, Living in Bootstrap America, Linda Tirado observed, quote, being healthy and being poor are generally mutually exclusive conditions. We all have physical weaknesses, but a rich person tends to get these tended to before they get out of control. Poor people don't have that luxury. 5. Consequently, poverty is a tremendous driver of healthcare usage, although it hasn't always been that way. 50 years ago, average costs for poor patients were less than those of wealthy patients. In 1992, they reached parity, and by 2008, Medicare spending was 30 to 40% higher for lower income beneficiaries. 6. Dr. Richard Buzz Cooper examined usage rates within the Wisconsin hospital referral regions, where Milwaukee has a 35% higher usage rate than the rest of the state, measured in days used per 1,000 people. However, that usage was not uniform within the city. When usage rates were broken out by zip codes, he discovered that the poorest ones had an 85% above average utilization rate, and concluded that lifting up the poor and near poor residents could decrease hospital utilization by as much as 35%. He wrote, quote, most of this increment was due to very high rates of admission and readmission for chronic illnesses, such as congestive heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and diabetes, which were fourfold to sevenfold more frequent among residents of the poverty corridor than those residing in Milwaukee's affluent suburbs. 7. Children will gain some of the largest health benefits from UBI. When pregnant mothers are stressed, studies show they can pass along epigenetic hardships to their unborn children, leading to an increased risk of many of the health issues that Dr. Cooper identified in Milwaukee. 8. Childhood development is also impacted by economic stress in a household. Adults concerned about issues like rent are less talkative, and the amount of verbal engagement children receive is a key indicator of future success. A 2018 study estimating the economic cost of childhood poverty in the United States found that poverty also increases child maltreatment, which then drives foster care services and other child welfare programs. Their research suggested poverty was the direct cause of 30% of the children in the child welfare system. 9. The lifetime costs of childhood poverty are tremendous. That same study estimated them at $1,030 billion for the cohort of children born in a given year. More than one-third was attributed to crime and incarceration, with another 29% coming from reduced lifetime earnings. And the authors concluded, children being raised in poverty do not have the same chances for success as children who are raised in middle or upper income families. This contradicts our very belief in liberty and justice for all.
There's a lot of data in the last few findings. We need to let it sink in. Let's break here and discuss what has been said about how UBI improves the health of the entire nation, especially children.
10. During the 1990s, research in the Great Smoky Mountains of North Carolina were studying the long-term psychological impacts of poverty on children there. And a few years into the study, profit sharing from a new casino boosted the family incomes of about a quarter of the participants. The resulting control group provided an insight into the familial effects of reducing poverty. Parents reported a third less arguments, less drug and alcohol usage, and the children's behavioral symptoms dropped 27%. When they grew up, they were 22% more likely to find a full-time job. 11. Many of the health benefits are directly attributable to empowering parents to make better decisions for their children. Parents all across the economic spectrum tend to spend extra money on their kids when they can. Fruits, vegetables, other healthier foods in the house are one common result of basic income experiments. In Alaska, babies who got a $1,000 oil dividend in their first year of life were 4.5% less likely to be obese compared to those whose benefit didn't arrive until they were toddlers. 12. American union jobs recognize the value in the work that everyone does, even if it's not employment. UBI will allow many families to consider having a parent stay home during a child's formative years, further strengthening families. Proposals to address poverty with a higher minimum wage miss important booms like this one because they only benefit those who work for financial compensation. UBI is an unconditional $300 a week raise for every adult, plus $100 for every child. It offers greater freedom to decide for oneself how to allocate time between work and leisure. 13. The cliche of the starving artist is well known. With UBI to provide a minimum level of income, it's easy to imagine art colonies springing up, with people pooling their incomes and sharing a house while they pursue their art. Others will form cooperatives around different businesses or industries. One can picture artisans working together to run small factories or farms, video game studios, other boutique offerings of all sorts. With America enmeshed in the World Wide Web, the demand for global entrepreneurial services can be provided from anywhere. 14. For those engaged in traditional employment, American union jobs will provide greater liberty in choosing an employer, freeing people to seek right livelihood. They will also enable greater civic engagement. Occupy Wall Street needed about $1,000 a day for food in Zuccotti Park, and while people made sacrifices to be there, it was unsustainable. American union jobs bring the power to petition our government for redress of grievances. On $300 a week, campaigns could literally occupy Washington. 15. UBI unlocks large amounts of human potential that is currently trapped by poverty. The impact of economic stress has been tested in many ways, such as evaluating farmers in India before and after the harvest. The distraction of insecurity has been found to lower IQ by 13 points and to increase the number of errors factory workers make. 16. Unsurprisingly, poverty is also a driver of crime. Basic economic principles suggest people commit crimes if the benefits outweigh the cost, so poor people have a greater rate of return. Alaska discovered that property crimes fell about 8% in the 2 weeks after their annual oil dividend was distributed. 17. This influence works in both directions. The criminal justice system disproportionately includes people in the lower quintiles of income. A Villanova University study concluded mass incarceration has increased the U.S. poverty rate by an estimated 20%. A family's probability of being poor is 40% greater if the father is imprisoned. 18. Many Americans would use their UBI to pay down student loans or other debt. As productivity has increased since the 1970s, wages have not kept up with these gains, resulting in an economic gap between the amount of wages earned in the economy and the value of goods produced for sale. That structural deficit, which has been temporarily filled in with increasing consumer debt, can only be permanently bridged by an external source of income, or alternately negated by widespread defaults. American union jobs are essential to the continued prosperity of our nation. 19. Although they are unconditional, no one can be fired from an American union job any more than they can be fired from being an American. They do include job duties, because they are a regular reminder of the 5 duties enumerated in the preamble: establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. 20. Even the rare individual who does nothing productive in a given week is promoting the general welfare, prosperity, by spending $300, bridging that structural gap between wage income and productive output. This will rejuvenate local economies all around the nation as small businesses reap the rewards of new paying customers. An economy powered by UBI is a trickle-up economy. Money is spent multiple times as it works its way up the economic ladder. 21. As Americans, we can cooperate to ensure that all of us have enough to meet our basic needs. That gives us greater freedom from economic coercion, providing the ability to walk away from abusive or exploitative relationships. The liberty to make meaningful choices about our lives is a critical component of happiness. Subsection B, purpose. The purpose of the American Union Jobs Program is to 1. Promote health, happiness, and prosperity. 2. Remind every citizen of the United States of our duties to each other. And 3. To end poverty.
That concludes the findings for UBI. This last section addressed poverty and crime. Adding this to all the aforementioned benefits, how much would the savings be with all the improvements that will come from UBI?